List with Elizabeth show, ready to go live in 3, 2.
When you think selling and buying a home,
when I think real estate, I think List with Elizabeth.
Elizabeth Klein.
Elizabeth and Klein.
And here is the host of the List with Elizabeth show, Elizabeth Klein.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the List with Elizabeth show. I am Elizabeth Ann Klein, your host. I work in Northern Virginia, helping buyers buy and sellers sell residential real estate. I love what I do. I love being an agent. I'm happy to bring this show to you each and every week. If you have any topics you would like to see covered, please reach out and let me know. If you need help with anything in Northern Virginia as far as buying or selling real estate, also feel free to reach out so I can assist you. And if you are in another part of the state or the country and you're looking for a professional to guide you, also reach out. We have an internal network where we can go through and find 2 or 3 top agents in your area and get those names and numbers over to you. So you have a professional guiding you every step of the way, which is the most important piece of advice I can give you if you're going to sell or buy real estate. So thank you all for coming back again. Please subscribe if you like the show. That will help push it out to others so people can find it. Put your comments below and feel free to call anytime. So we're going to jump into our show today. I am very excited for my guest today. She is not only my broker, but a really great person and friend. And her name is Jess Miller. If we want to bring Jess right on, I'd love to get things rolling right away here today. Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
How
Good
are
to see
you? I'm still like jamming to that intro music. That was so fun.
Right? Isn't that great?
Yes.
I know I have a very good producer. So we'll go dancing after this. How about that?
Okay.
Okay. So Jess, thank you so much for being here today. Today our episode is called Call the Broker, right? When deals go sideways. What happens when that transaction doesn't go as smoothly as you thought it was going to? We do something called Call the Broker. And Jess Miller is one of our brokers at Samson Properties. So Jess, if you want to just start by telling people a little bit about who you are and your role as a broker, we can just kind of start with that.
Okay, awesome. First, thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm so excited. So excited to be here. Okay, so how did I get to be a broker? Well, I first started as a realtor. Almost 12 years ago, I was first a receptionist at a real estate company. And I thought, I think I want to look into this real estate thing. And I became a realtor and was working real estate. And then one day, I had a deal with another agent at Samson Properties. And she said, you should join Samson Properties. I said, I have no idea what's pulling me there, but I'm going to go ahead and take the jump and switch brokerages. And I just really didn't know what was pulling me there. But after about 8 months of being a new realtor at Samson, a realtor, I think I was probably about 10 years in, maybe 9 years in. And I found out that the realtor that brought me over was actually the office manager there. And she was retiring. And she says, okay, Jess, I think you'd be a great office manager. And at that time, I knew she wasn't a broker. She was just an office manager. I thought, I could do that. I could do the office manager job.
Okay.
And so
reeling you in.
Yeah. So I met with Donnie to go over, to have my official interview for the office manager job. And he sprung on me, who you've had Donnie Samson on your show before. Yes, so everyone knows who that is. But Donnie sprung on me that he really wanted all of the office managers to now be brokers. And I had not done my broker exam, my broker classes. I hadn't really had not planned on being a broker, but I really loved the idea of the office manager job. So I said, give me some time and I will get my broker license.
Okay.
I said, give me a year.
So
And
let's stop right there for a minute.
yeah. Uh-huh.
So what does it take to go from realtor to broker? And then what is the role of a broker?
Very good question. I have some notes over here I'm going to be looking at here and there.
No worries.
So, to be a broker, you have to have a minimum requirement of 3 years of full-time real estate experience. So that means you are working 40 hours a week as a realtor for at least 3 years, helping buy, sell, rent, landlords, tenants, all of the real estate duties as a realtor. After you are doing that for at least 3 years full time, then you earn the right to take the broker classes and take the broker exam. There are 4 broker classes. They're 45 hours each. So it's a total of 180 hours of classroom. And after each of those, you have to pass a test that gives you the ticket to go take the national and state broker exams. Once you pass those, you have your take off your realtor hat. Now you're a broker hat. So the difference now is, as a broker, you are overseeing other realtors, making sure they are reading their contracts right. If they run into problems, that's when they call you, and just signing all of their paperwork, their listing agreements, their buyer brokerage agreements, answering any questions they might have, and any problems, then they call the broker.
Yeah.
And then also there's some office manager duties where I am just helping people get situated into Samson when they're coming over as a brand new agent or as a transfer agent, just helping them get up and running with Samson.
So I do get this question a lot of times, Elizabeth, are you a broker? Oh, you're not a broker. Who's your broker? And what capacity are they going to fulfill in our transaction? So I could apply for my broker's license, right? I would just have to take the tests and take the classes. But a lot of agents choose not to do that. I have chosen not to do that at this point in my career because for me, I'm more working in the field, not so much interested in overseeing other agents at this point. But our brokerage is Samson Properties, and then Jess Miller is one of the brokers within the brokerage. And how many brokers total are there at Samson Properties?
There's a good, I believe, 20 to 30 brokers, and that's in the whole company, so multiple states. So I'm a Virginia broker, so any Virginia questions would come to me. And another way I explain to my clients, because I still have clients, I'm still selling, I'm still out there with my own clients too. Some brokerages allow that and some don't. So it depends on the situation. And how I explain to my clients when I got my broker's license, I got calls. Are you still my realtor? Are you still my realtor?
Yeah.
And I say, the only difference really for my clients is that I now have what I call a master's degree in our field. So I went through, it's like you have a 4-year college degree when you're a realtor, and the broker, the broker classes is like getting a master's degree in the field.
That's perfect. Also, I think for you, you get questions from, I don't know, 5, 10, 100 agents a month, right? So you're constantly seeing different transactions go through versus as me being just an agent, I only really see my transactions.
Right.
So the amount of experience you start to snowball and gather and garnish just by being in your role, it just must be exponential.
Yes. I mean, there are things that I was a realtor already for about 9-10 years when I became a broker. I hadn't seen everything. You never see everything. You never know every situation. So what I love about our company is that we do have other brokers with much more experience than me. So if I run across a problem that I'm not really sure how to deal with that one, I can call someone also. So we've got our
and
top
it's not
brokers.
even that they have more experience. It's just that they may have experienced different things.
Yes.
than you have, because you have
Yes.
just as much experience as anyone else who is a broker. So,
Mhm.
but I do love that as well. Sometimes, and this is where for the clients, it's, if you're interviewing, let's say a listing agent, you might want to ask them, hey, how many brokers do you have in case we run into unforeseen problems? And if they say
Mhm.
one, you might want to keep looking for an agent that has more than one, because I've been at companies that have had one, and now I've met Samson Properties, which has 20 plus. So if something hits my desk and it's urgent and I need an answer
Then you
like
can go down the
right
list.
now,
Mhm.
and I
Yeah.
call that one person and they're busy or they're not picking up,
Mhm.
then what? So really that's kind of, to me, really the only, I think, issue that clients may consider when choosing a realtor is,
Mhm.
who are you with? Who's your brokerage? Because that's a requirement of a realtor. We have to hang our license with a brokerage. And
Yeah.
then within the brokerage, who's kind of overseeing everything, who's running it, how many of them are there?
Mhm.
So I think that's important, if you're out there, you're thinking about selling your home or you're thinking about buying a home,
Yep.
and you have 2-3 people that you're interviewing for a buyer's agent, that's one of the questions I would ask them, because it can be
Especially
extremely
some
important.
especially some of the agents that get their broker license and then they go off and do their own brokerage. So it would be like Jess Miller Real Estate, and I'm the
Mhm.
broker and I'm the realtor.
Right.
And to me, that'd be a caution because they don't have someone else to call in their brokerage that's above them.
Yeah.
And it could be a positive, but also who do they go to if they need help or if they run into a tricky situation?
Well, if they get sick, I
And
mean,
and that.
we're
Yeah.
all human, right?
Yep.
Until
Mhm.
AI takes over, like, we are still humans running the business.
Mhm.
So, that is something, as a client, I think that you can kind of put on your question list when you're talking to agents.
Mhm. Yep.
Perfect. Let's pull up the second slide.
Okay.
So, once you, as a seller or a buyer, hire your realtor and then they have a broker, what is the broker's role within your transaction? Whether you're buying or selling, how would someone like Jess fit in? And I am going to just really quickly throw out there that they don't always need to be involved in the transaction. So it's
Exactly.
right. So it's something like, it's there if you need it. She's there if
Mhm.
we need her, but if we don't need her, that's fine as well. But
Yeah.
you'd rather have her and not need her than
There's
you don't have her.
hundreds of
Yeah.
transactions that fly through our company and I don't get involved at all. Or I'm only involved in the initial signing of the broker agreement. So the very beginning, I sign off on that, and then it goes all the way through with no need to reach out to me.
Mhm.
Hundreds a week, happen like that where I'm not needed, which is great. But even if I'm needed, I'm okay with, stepping in or so typically it's a clarification. Somebody needs a clarification or they don't know how to handle a certain situation. And most of the time, the agents already know the answer and they just need to brainstorm and get
Mhm.
through to that answer. Or they know the answer and they're just unsure and they just need some validation that they are on the right track. And then there are times where they're not on the right track.
Right.
And I
Right.
gently guide them to get to the right spot, or there are times when I have to have real serious conversations with them that, usually I try to, well, this is a great learning experience and this is how you should
Yeah.
handle this better next time. And, there are times where we get into situations that this is clearly possibly turning into a legal matter
Mhm.
and their client should consult with an attorney. The great thing about Samson is anything that is getting super serious, um, I can also give a call to our top broker and make sure I'm on the right track with the advice that I'm giving them. And especially if it's going to be a legal situation, I always touch base on anything that looks like it's going to turn legal, whether our client needs a lawyer or our realtor needs a lawyer.
Mhm.
That all gets sent up the line to our top supervising broker.
So just to clarify, brokers are not attorneys.
Correct. Yeah.
They could be, but they
Yes.
don't have to be. And
Right.
in
Yeah.
many cases, I would say, at least in Virginia, they are not.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
and attorneys really aren't used in settlements in Virginia.
Right.
So we don't have attorneys at the closing table. We don't have attorneys when
Yeah.
we're signing documents, reviewing.
Settlement agents.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So brokers are really not attorneys either. So that's a whole other capacity of knowledge that, is for someone else.
Knowing when you need
Yeah.
to switch over to that other role is really important. And sometimes realtors want to jump straight over to the attorneys. And sometimes it's best to, talk to a broker, get these things straight. And then, this is
Mhm.
a legal issue, we do need to talk to an attorney.
Also, I do want to just mention that, at least in our office, Jess, you run a lot of trainings
Mhm.
also, as the broker. So she may come in one week and say, okay, guys, here are the 5 questions I got last week. And let me share this with everyone. So everyone is now learning,
Lessons
oh,
learned.
if there's
Mhm.
an issue with the neighbor's fence and it's 5 inches on the survey line, how can we go about remedying that? Or, all these different things. So brokers are just a wealth of knowledge. They can really help spread that knowledge base to all of the agents in the office, which Jess does a great job at. Lots of
you.
trainings, lots of just, masterminding with the agents and sharing that knowledge and continually growing.
Thank you so
Awesome.
much.
You're welcome. So let's throw up the third slide. When would a broker get involved? Let's see. When deals hit roadblocks, resolving contract disputes, miscommunications, handling ethics and legal compliance for agents. There's so much right there on that slide.
Yes. I have all kinds of notes. We could go a whole hour on that.
Tell us a little bit about what do you see most? Like what are like some of the big ones you always get hit with? Or
So
I'm
I
curious.
find that probably 75% of the time, the issues are agents getting in their own way. They know the answer. They're kind of pushing their own thoughts and feelings. They're getting emotionally tied up. The other agent is getting emotionally tied up. And we need to get them out of their own way. We still have a buyer that wants to buy a house, and we still have a seller that wants to sell a house. And the agents maybe sometimes, I mean, not everybody is the same, type of person. There's always that 1% you're not going to get along with no matter what. So sometimes it's just them, butting heads, or, and I tell them, this is not the hill your client wants to die on. It's find a middle ground for all the parties so we can move forward. So sometimes, probably 75% of the time, it's just agents getting too wrapped up or too emotional, and we just need to bring it back down a little bit, step back and take a look, black and white, look at the contract. Where do we need to go from here? And then,
you mean there's emotions involved in transactions with hundreds of thousands of dollars at stake?
Absolutely. It can get tough, and that's the biggest purchase your client's going to make in their life. And they're only going to do it a couple times, maybe just one time, and it can get, pretty tough. Also, thankfully, I don't get too many clients calling me directly. I need to complain about my realtor. I don't get too many of those. Oh, thank goodness.
Yes, that's great.
We've got some really great realtors in our office, in our company. But once in a while, there's somebody, and 9 times out of 10, that client just wants to feel heard. They just want to tell their story, and they just want to know that somebody hears them. And for some reason, there was some breakdown in communication between them and their realtor, and we just got to get them connected back again and get that trust back again. But a lot of times they just want to tell their story and be heard.
Yeah.
And they're scared and they're frustrated and their, emotions are high because it's a big purchase or a big
Yeah.
sale. Mhm.
I think too, sometimes clients picture a transaction going one way, or
Mhm.
getting a certain price or having a certain type of buyer and that may or may not happen. And then as things progress, if they're getting emotional with their agent, then the agent may need to come to you, right? And say,
Right.
how do
Yes.
I mitigate this? Can you step in? Can you
Yeah.
be a third party? Can you be a new, set of
Mediate.
eyes
Yeah.
and ears just to
Mhm.
take a look at this?
Yeah. Exactly.
I know I've used you for that before myself. I mean,
Yes.
it's,
There have been times,
it's strangers doing business with strangers with hundreds of thousands of dollars at stake. Like
Yes.
that's why there's agents involved and brokers to kind of manage and maintain all of that.
Yep. Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
What else you got there on your notes?
Let's see here. What else do I have here? Handling ethics and legal complaints for agents. Thankfully, those are sent up the line to a higher broker, our principal broker. So
Okay.
all companies have one principal broker, and then all of the associate brokers. So if there's a principal broker, and then all the other brokers are called associate brokers. Unless you're managing one of the offices, then you're the managing broker of that office. Which is a lot of detail, probably, but
That's okay.
and then there's a bunch of people that have taken the broker exam and they have the broker license, but they're not managing an office. They just wanted the extra education. So those are all called associate brokers. And that's just because they have a broker license and they're, not a managing broker, but they're just an associate broker. So the top broker is the supervising broker where everyone's licenses go up under that top broker. So that is our Mike Briggs. And my kids know that if I am on the phone with Mike Briggs, they're out of the way. Because it's usually something serious and he's amazing and he's just so easy to talk to. And I just love that we have him. But it is sometimes, necessary to walk someone through a complaint. I've only had a couple of complaints that may have made it to the ethics, which were about an agent using the previous agent's photos for their listing.
Hmm.
That's pretty common, even though it's a no-no,
Yeah.
where agents will take previous agents' photos and use it. I would say after it's been about a little over 2 years that I've been the broker, that's really the only one that keeps showing back up that's kind of silly. It's like, no, don't use other people's photos.
Yeah, that's not
The
allowed.
photographer catches wind and then they, threaten to sue or,
Mhm.
it's a simple take it back down. Most of the problems can be resolved, especially contract problems, just with an addendum that everybody agrees to and signs. So even if you're past your contingency period and you're like, oh no, the sky is falling, it's not, because all you have to do is write another addendum that everybody
Yeah.
agrees to and sign it, and then you're back on track. So
Yeah. Well, that's good. That's good that you're solution based. And I think you have to be as the broker, right?
mhm.
And sometimes I'm just trying to think back on some of my deals. Um, I've had other agents say, I want your broker involved in this, or I want my broker to talk to your broker, or
Yes.
whatever the case may be. Because sometimes, and I remember succinctly, actually, this one just came back to me. This one transaction we had where I had the sellers and we went under contract, and the buyer's agent received the HOA documents for this particular home, which is what we were required to do, is pass those over. And he I'm trying to remember. I don't think he read them. And there was a dispute or something. And after the 3-day window had passed, they wanted to void the contract. And you can't void the contract after your window passes.
Yes.
So, we had to get the brokers involved to educate the agent on the other side that you're consulting your clients incorrectly.
Yep.
Because he wouldn't listen to me.
Mhm.
So we had to go broker to broker for that.
Yes, and the other broker has to share that information with their realtor. So I can't broker that other realtor, they're not in my company
Right.
unless they're in our company. But
Okay.
and it's a no for a broker to call an agent directly of another company. So if you're
Okay.
having a problem with another realtor of another company, it's a no for me to call that realtor directly.
Right.
Too,
So you would call their
because
broker.
yes, so I call their broker, and then their broker takes care of talking to them about whatever the issue is, and then gets back to me, and then I get back to our agent.
Yeah.
A little bit
Yeah.
of
And
trickle through.
I'm remembering too, there was a time when I had the buyers and there was another agent on the other side who had the sellers, and we were under contract. And my buyers really wanted to purchase this house. Well, halfway through the transaction, the sellers just decided they didn't want to sell anymore.
Mhm.
And my buyers had put forth their earnest money deposit. So that money was gone, that was out of their bank account, that was being held in escrow.
Mhm.
And my buyers chose not to seek legal performance to force the sellers to
Yeah.
sell. They said, okay, we'll just move on, but we want our earnest money back. The sellers
Yes.
didn't want to give the earnest money back. They didn't want to sell. They were in breach
Yeah.
of contract. They weren't going to be sued, but they were also holding my client's money. So we had to get the brokers involved to
Yeah.
try to get the client's realtor to clearly explain to their clients their position and make
Yes.
sure the right thing was done. So, I really, and I've heard this phrase before, and it's so true. The deal is only good as the integrity of both the parties on both sides.
Absolutely.
That is it. It doesn't matter what you have in writing. If one party is not going to do the right thing or abide by what's in writing, you still got to deal with it. So,
Exactly.
and that's where, again, brokers can come in and help with that type of thing.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you ever see that where people don't want to release earnest money
Yes.
deposits
Yes.
where it's rightful to release? Wow. Yeah.
Yes. The great thing about Samson is we do encourage our buyers to send their earnest money deposit to Samson to hold instead of the title company, because the title company does need a court order in order to release it back or release it to the other party, where there are certain instances within Samson that we can release it back. It just depends on the situation. But sometimes we don't have to have a court order to release it back. But a title company would require a court order. So it's just one of those tricky things.
A court order or all parties to agree.
Exactly. And
Which
most
when
of
there's
the
a
time,
disagreement, that's the problem.
most of the time they're not agreeing, which is why we're involved. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. No, very interesting. Let's throw up the fourth slide here because I want to get into the fun stuff. I want
Okay.
some real life examples, Jess, of
Okay.
your broker
Awesome.
problem solving.
Let's see here. Let me see what my notes are here.
Yeah, you probably have so many.
So there was a
from.
deal last year where the buyer did not want to complete their closing or take possession of the home because there was a very small nick in the handrail that wasn't there before.
Oh,
So their final walkthrough, they see this little small nick in the handrail. They swear it wasn't there before. They think it was caused by the seller's movers. And then both the buyer and the seller just drew a line in the sand. Neither wanted to help the other, and neither wanted to close on the house.
wow.
For this situation.
Okay.
So they came to me, our buyer's agent came to me, and I suggested that each party get an estimate from their own contractor to fix the nick in the handrail. I mean, and when I tell you, I got a picture of it. It was as big as my pinky nail. It was tiny. And it wasn't even in a real obvious spot. It was on the underneath of the handrail. So we had contractors come in and create estimates. And the seller's contractor, bless their heart, because they had done so much work for that seller to prepare the house for sale and this and that, didn't want the seller to be in this position. So they just fixed it.
For free.
Yep. They just fixed it. Because otherwise, the agents didn't want to give up any of their commission. The buyer and seller didn't want to do anything else. They've already, we already fixed enough for them.
Yeah.
Or whatever. That was already there. You have no proof that that happened.
Yeah,
And
that's the thing.
that can get tricky. So,
Yes, a lot of these disputes are extremely difficult, if not impossible to prove.
yeah,
Unless someone walked through the property
with a
with a
video
video
camera
camera
and did
and
every single inch of the
every
home.
single inch of the
Yeah.
and even if they did, there has to be some understanding that nicks and scratches and whatnot you're not
Mhm.
buying a brand new house. This is
Yeah.
this is a house that has been lived in. So there are going to be things like that you're going to find that you didn't see when you spent 20 minutes at the house looking at it before you wrote an offer. I mean,
Yes.
it's not like you live there for 2 weeks and then decide whether or not you want to buy it. You are in and out, at least in our market, in less than 30 minutes.
Yep. Yeah.
So
Mhm.
I think that if that had gone to court, the question becomes, what would a judge deem reasonable? Is it reasonable for buyers to put a halt on an entire transaction over a nick this big? I'm going to guess it's not. Um,
Mhm.
so then in that case, now there's attorneys involved and there's time and effort and it's so again, like going to your broker, that's something just to try to
Yeah.
put it back on track.
We try really hard to resolve the problems without going
Yeah.
to attorneys,
Yeah.
unless it just is such an issue that we're in trouble. Like this is definitely going to turn into,
Mhm.
could turn into a big legal mess. Then we say, we need to consult an attorney on
Yeah.
this, or you need to recommend to your buyer or your seller that they need to consult an attorney. One of the, it's kind of similar to the little nick in the handrail, but another item that we come across a lot, and I tell realtors all the time, when you are very first seeing a house, if you see that seller has pictures all over the walls,
Oh,
like 30 pictures in the
Yep.
living room of their family, when they take that down, there's going to be little nail holes.
Mhm.
Nowhere in the contract does it say that they must patch and repair the nail
Correct.
holes for
Mhm.
the 30 pictures that they had on that wall. So what happens is they get to closing, they're doing their final walkthrough. The buyer says, "Oh, I don't like all those nail holes."
Yeah.
But if the realtor from the beginning says, there are lots of pictures here, there's going to be nail holes, there's
Mhm.
nothing in the contract to state, would you like to include in your offer that there's a requirement that they fix and patch and paint the nail holes?
Right.
Because that's the way to get it done, not at the final walkthrough when they realize there's nail holes, little tiny nail holes from the pictures. Yeah.
That's a
So
good one. That happens all the time.
all the
Even if a
time.
house is vacant and freshly painted and then staged, the stagers hang
Yep.
artwork.
Yes.
So there's
And then
always
who's
gonna be
responsible for those nail holes,
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Know your
One of
state, know
the
your contract.
Mm,
And
what'd you say?
if expectations are set clearly from the beginning,
Yes.
it can avoid a lot of problems down the road.
Yes,
That's
exactly.
a good one. What else do you got?
Let's see. Lender rejection. So,
Mhm.
the buyer had a certain amount of time to get their financing in order, the financing contingency, and they were about 2 weeks before closing, and their lender said, "There's no way I can continue to move forward on your loan. There's some issues," and they sent over a lender rejection letter. And that realtor gave me a call and said, "How do I get my client out of this contract in order to save their EMD?" And I said, "Well, what's the problem?" And they told me, "Well, it's this lender letter, rejection, this and that." Well, I could have just given them the answer, "This is how you're going to get your buyer out of the contract and get their EMD back." But
Mhm.
instead I said, "Well, that's one lender. There's so many lenders. That's a really minor problem that maybe another lender could push that through for you. Get some other opinions, have your buyer get some other opinions quickly with a couple different lenders." And they were actually able to get approved and closed within 2 weeks. So they
Wow.
almost completely walked away from that house because of their one issue on their credit that lender couldn't, that lender's underwriter said, "No, I can't, we aren't going to do this loan."
That's amazing.
So
You actually saved that house for that family.
yes.
That's so great.
And that was a newer realtor. So they, knew enough, but wanted to make sure their client got their money back,
Yeah.
and I said, "Well, let's keep bringing the ball down the road. We've got time. Let's see if we can get this. We were the financing contingency didn't expire. It was one that automatically extended through the date of the closing.
Mhm.
So it's always important to review the contract and see, do you really have more time or not? And if you were a day before the financing contingency expiring, well, can we do an addendum to get more time? Or can we, do we have to just go ahead and let this one go? Or what do we need to do? So that's one.
That's
That was
great.
it. That was a win-win for everybody,
Yeah,
and we celebrated.
That's great.
Let me see if I have another. I have one that was like a one-time thing.
Okay.
I think it's a one-time. I don't know. For me, it's a one-time thing.
Okay.
So I was personally purchasing a home on March 17th, and this is a couple years ago. My closing was March 17th. On March 16th, one of our realtors came running into my office and said, Jess, I have a problem. My buyers are here to close, and the seller has changed her mind. She is not showing up, and she's not going to sell the house. They came from Florida. They are living in a hotel with their 2-year-old and 3 dogs. So if she doesn't come to closing, they are homeless because the hotel runs out. The military had given them a amount for the hotel, and they sold their house in Florida. They're ready to close on their house, and the seller is not showing up. They need a place to live, and we called the other broker. The other broker called their realtor. This lady refuses to leave her house.
Wow.
And it was crazy. And so they literally didn't have anywhere to go, and they couldn't buy their house. And they had an option to consult with an attorney and decide if they wanted to sue for specific performance. Because technically she could be forced to sell her house to them. She can't just change her mind. There's contracts for a reason. And in the contract, it states that the person who is in the wrong in the contract is the person who pays the legal fees if it turns out that they are wrong. So these buyers decided they didn't have much to lose. I mean, they'd go for it. And at the end, if they win, she's going to pay their legal fees and be removed from the home. So they were super distraught about whether they should sue or not, because they had this other issue of where are we going to live in the meantime?
Yeah. It takes time.
Suing could take months. It could take 2, 3, 4 months. So because I was going to closing on my new house and I was planning to rent my previous house out, I said, stay in my house.
There you go. Wow. This doesn't happen all the time. That's right.
That will never happen again.
Right.
They were a beautiful family. They needed the help. It was a God thing. I just had the home, there and said, well, I'm not going to be able to fix it all up. They didn't care. They were just happy to have a roof over their head, 3 dogs, 2 and a 2-year-old and everything. But I said, well, you just take it as is. And, it did take 4 months for them to get through their legal battle. And at the end of that 4 months, she was removed from the home, and she paid their legal expenses, and they got their home. So that is a very rare situation. But that has been the most memorable.
I'm sure.
And that realtor and I became super close. We're really close friends now because of that. They were actually her relatives too. They were relatives of this realtor. So she was like, you took care of my family. So that was really, really wonderful, a wonderful situation that, was just very rare situation.
And I will say too, I think that, and you will have more experience than I have, but I think it's rare that parties do go to court.
Yes.
Right. It's rare. I mean, usually they work something out or.
Yeah. We also in Samson, we have some procedures in place that keep us from court, because one of the 90% of court cases are between, and it might not be 90. I'm just throwing that number out there because I know it's a lot. But many court cases are between landlords and tenants that the realtor represented both sides. So that's dual agency.
Okay.
And in Samson, we don't allow dual agency in any rental transaction. So it's one of our policies, that saves us from that issue of, being one of those most common reasons to go to court.
Yeah, that is interesting that court is used more on the rental side than the purchase and sale side.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They're trickier transactions, more people are involved. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a great story. Any other ones you wanted to share today?
I think I already shared the other ones that I had.
Okay,
basically, like legal compliance issues, being caught before they become a problem. Most are the lawsuits for dual agency and rental transactions. And then the next most common problem and it's not super often, it's just most common that I've seen, is the taking the photos that have been used previously.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Take your own photos, listing agents. Just take your own photos.
Yes, take your own. I mean, it would be best if you don't use your cell phone, but I'd rather you use your cell phone for pictures than
steal them.
Then you steal them, take them for somebody else. It's best to use a professional photographer, but if you can't and you have to use your cell phone, do that, but just don't take them from another listing.
And to all the clients out there, don't work with agents that are using their cell phones, okay, or stealing photos. Like, again, make sure you're aligned with a professional realtor in your area that knows the ins and outs of the business, understands the contracts, can get you from ratification to close, can do a great job at negotiating. These are all skill sets that not every agent has. I mean, it takes a lot to really work this business professionally, full time, and make sure your agent has a great broker on their side and a great company that they're with.
Yes.
At the end of the day, that's really the takeaway for all the potential buyers and sellers out there. Well, Jess, thank you again so much for coming on the show. If you have any parting words or anything else you wanted to share before we wrap up today?
Just thank you for having me. This was so much fun. I was excited and a little nervous. My kids call that neck-sighted.
Oh, I like that. I have not heard that before.
Yeah, you can be nervous and excited at the same time, but you made it so easy and comfortable, and I appreciate you having me. So thank you.
Thank you. And in case anyone needs to talk to our broker, Jess Miller, there's her information on the screen.
There it is.
Jess, your phone might be blowing up after this.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me turn it on. It'll be ready.
Well, thank you everyone again for tuning in to another episode of List with Elizabeth. I am Elizabeth Ann Klein, and I will see you all on the next episode. See you later.
When you're ready to sell your home, don't be silly and do it alone. You gotta get Elizabeth on the phone or go to listwith